Hello everyone and welcome to a new series that I like to call Versus. This is a new series that I'm going to be starting on the channel where I take two Rainbow Six Siege operators and put them up against each other to see which one, in my personal opinion, is a bit better. This is not to say that the one that loses is necessarily worse than the operator. This is to say that the operator that I choose, in my opinion, is worth buying earlier on than it is to be buying later. Today, I'm going to be looking at two dedicated shield operators. Yes, I know that there are 4 shield operators throughout the entirety of Rainbow Six Siege, but there are 2 that I'm going to be talking about today. The reason why I call them dedicated shield operators is because their abilities are tied to their shields, which I will get into more in a second. But today, I'm going to be starting off today with them, and they are Montang versus Blitz. Let's get into the video. So, Montang versus Blitz, or however you pronounce that. Again, I do not really know the pronunciation. I believe it's pronounced Montang, but I've heard it pronounced Montagne. However you pronounce it is fine, but it is French for mountain, so I do know that. Anyway, today I'm going to be going over their loadouts and their abilities, as well as giving you some gameplay tips laden throughout the entire video, and then all culminating in my final recommendation. Let's get into how this works, starting with Montagne. Montagne is a 3 armor, 1 speed operator. This means that he can take a bit more damage than average, but he does not have the speed to run away. He does, however, have his loadout, which is a shield, which is his deployable shield. I know on the thing it just says it's a regular ballistic shield, but it's a deployable shield, and his shield ability I'll get into a bit more later. His ballistic shield works pretty much like any ballistic shield throughout the game. He has a visor that limits his vision a little bit, and it can also not be shot through. It also comes with the added benefit of if the shield is between him and the explosion, the more of his body is behind the shield, the more the explosion is cancelled out. He does not take 0 damage though. He will take some damage regardless of how much of his body is behind the shield. He just benefits it more due to his ability, which I'll get into more in a second again. For his guns, you have the P9 or the revolver. The P9 is a magazine-fed blaster, which basically means it has more ammo, but that does mean that it does have less damage than the revolver. It can, however, have a laser sight as well as a barrel attachment to try and do anything along the lines of what those do. On the other hand, you have the revolver, which is a 6-shot revolver pistol. Again, it can be equipped with a laser sight, but no barrel attachment. The revolver has more damage and less ammo, being 6 shots. The differences between them are apparent from the word go, and it's more of a pick your poison type deal. For most people, the revolver is a better choice because it does more damage. The only problem with the revolver is that it only has 6 shots, so you best be very accurate with it. And with Monty being very accurate with his revolver being very accurate with either gun could lead to victories or defeats, but again, more often than not, I would say go with your best judgment. For his throwables, you have the smokes or stuns. I do not have any preference on either of these, as both of them have their own uses in their own rights. They both can be taken out by Jaeger's ADS as well, just as a note, so it's more of a use your best judgment in that scenario. Let's move on to Blitz. Blitz also, again, has a ballistic shield, but his ballistic shield is a flash shield, which, again, I will get into in a second. His flash shield, again, functions very similarly to the explosive resistance of his shield. The shield, again, has a window that you can look through that, again, blocks bullets and cannot be destroyed, and has, again, the added benefits of if he crouches behind you, he gets the most effective of surviving an explosion on the enemy team. But moving on to the second part of his loadout, he has the P12 pistol. The P12 pistol is a magazine-fed pistol, and it's the only pistol available to him, so you're going to be using it a lot. It comes with a laser sight as well as barrel attachments, no optics because, again, it is a pistol. Moving on to his deployable secondary kind of gadgets, he has either breaching charges or smokes. I would definitely recommend breaching charges in most situations, as breaching charges allow you to create holes in unreinforced walls, as well as any and all barricades. This can eliminate the factor of having to go through places where there might be a Kapkan trap, or create new holes and new distraction breaches for stuff like that, while your team goes from another angle. Again, seeing as how he has his shield, I would definitely highly recommend for both of these operators the laser sights being attached to their guns. It's cheap and it's very effective in the way that it works. Again, being able to tighten up that hipfire spread even a little bit, especially while you have a giant thing that blocks bullets guarding the most valuable object in your body, your head. This allows you to then keep that up for as long as possible so you don't have to aim to take the more accurate shots. Let's get into their abilities. Starting off with Montagne. Again, Montagne's ability is his full-body deployable shield. This full-body deployable shield has to have the button being held in order to actually be usable. While in this mode, he cannot prone, crouch, or even fire while he is here. All he can really do is move around and ping things with the dedicated ping button on your respective platforms. This can be very good in some scenarios because since it is full body, he can take up the entirety of a doorway. You can take up the body of a one doorway place, meaning that if it's a single doorway, he can take up from end to end. He can also take up the entirety of a corner as well if you really need to be a distraction. This can be good if the person is not paying attention to you and doesn't see where you are. You can just be sitting in the corner, and again, resistance to explosions is crucial to a lot of the stuff. His biggest counter is going to be smoke, as the smoke actually goes around the shield and he is breathing it in. And with his slow speed, it's going to be taken very, very quickly. It's going to be taking him very, very quickly in the amount of time that he's going to, have to get out of there. Moving on to Blitz. Blitz's ability is his flash shield, as stated before. His flash shield is basically how you use it is you push the button and it sends out a directional flash. Yes, this is a directional flashbang, pretty much. It might not have the range of some other flashbangs because you might have it a bit further, but again, it works very similarly to an actual flashbang, with a range out to a certain point where you go completely flashed, aka your screen goes completely white and you can't hear a thing for a few seconds. Then there's out a bit further, you have the sort of flash where your screen's kind of half flashed and you can kind of hear stuff, and then again, but the only problem is that unlike a flashbang, if you have the range, if you even don't look at it, you don't really have to have your ears do the thing that they normally do with a normal flashbang. Again, you only have a certain number of charges and they do not regenerate. You have 5 charges, meaning that you can flash each one of the people on the enemy team at least once. And as stated before, they are both 3 armor, 1 speed operators. I should just mention that from the word go. But anyway, as stated before, that's the only thing of his ability. His biggest counter, oddly enough, is going to actually be mute, for reasons that I'm going to get into. The reason why mute is his biggest counter is for the sheer reason that his shield is actually battery powered. I did encounter this one time where I wasn't able to actually use my shield because I wasn't able to actually use my shield ability due to the sheer fact that I couldn't use it and it said it was jammed. This does not happen often, as more often than not, if you see the mute jammer, you'll be able to shoot it out. But again, in some scenarios, if you don't want to give away your position for whatever reason, I would say avoid mute jammers at all costs. If you can take them out, great. If you cannot, just try to avoid them and keep that radius in mind. So long as you're standing within the radius of the mute jammer, that means that you cannot use your shield. I believe you need to have line of sight of the mute jammer, and that's how the mute jammer works. So again, if you're up against a wall, it may or may not work. I haven't been able to physically test this. Moving on to some quick gameplay tips. As stated before, the laser sight is probably the most valuable attachment to this for multiple reasons. Seeing as they're both 3 armor, 1 speed operators, you're going to be making a lot of noise, especially with that gigantic shield that you're holding. You want to be able to keep that shield above your face because it cannot be destroyed, nor can it be shot through in most scenarios. So keeping a laser sight to even slightly increase to even slightly decrease that hip fire spread to keep your shield above your face would be beneficial in most scenarios. As stated before, the revolver and the P9 debate can be brought down to many different factors: personal opinion, accuracy, etc., etc. So I'm not going to really touch on that. As stated before, and I think the biggest downside to either of them is their speed and their armor. Is their speed, as again they are one-speed operators, meaning that they cannot move as fast as some of the other operators. Again, I think that while yes, it is perfect for the scenarios at hand, both of these operators are definitely ones to be feared in most scenarios if you use it correctly. So let's get into my final verdict of which one I believe is the best, of which one in my personal opinion is better. Between Montang and Blitz, I go with Blitz. Sorry to all you people who like Montang. While Montang is a great operator and is definitely has his place, in my personal opinion, he relies a bit too much on his teammates. That is his entire loadout choice pretty much down to a T. His guns, while some of them can be good, need to be accurate in order to get really good shots off. And again, with him, you're not going to be really using his guns, and he does have very significant counters, including smoke, explosives, etc., etc. And a good Montang will normally rely on his team, but a better Montang can possibly go off and be by himself. I found myself in most scenarios that I'm not a good Montang, and that it actually takes me a bit to get used to him. In all honesty, I believe that in most scenarios that a Montang can be good and can rely on himself if he is good enough, but that learning curve just seems to be a bit much for me. Whereas Blitz has a much less steeper learning curve. His learning curve is simply that you need to be able to crouch most of the time, most of the positioning to get that arm out of harm's way, so you don't take nearly as much damage as you think you would, knowing where your opponent is and how far they are from you, and knowing when to flash the person and when to save the flashes for another time, as well as like the range on whatever. Again, as stated, and again, it comes down to mainly attack versus defense. It comes down mainly to attack versus defense, whereas Monty is focused mostly on defense. He doesn't really have too much things to attack with, whereas with Blitz, he can attack and defend at a similar pace. With his defense, he has like basically just a giant shield that he can use. And again, as stated before, the shield can block explosives even if it's on your back. Please note that when you are using any sort of shield, if it is on it, you can take the shield away by hitting Y, so you only have your pistol. This can be good for some scenarios if you want to go prone, and whenever you are prone, the shield automatically goes to your back regardless. When you go and do anything that involves your other hand that is holding the shield, he puts the shield on his back and then deploys out whatever he's using. That means that if you're using if you're deploying the diffuser or even escorting a hostage, the shield will be on your back regardless. Also, while you are repelling, you also have your shield on your back, which is again an interesting thing to note. So try not to repel or do the objective as effectively. You can defend the objective with your shield. Again, it might make it less effective, and if you are the last one alive, definitely try to go for the objective if you can. But again, just to reiterate, for my final opinion, in Montang versus Blitz, I would have to say that Blitz wins in my opinion. If you have your own opinions, please leave them in the comment section below, and thank you so much for watching. Peace off.
Joe, the floor is lava!